Hi, everyone. This is Abhishek from ShakeTheCosmos.com. My guest today is Amrit Acharya. Amrit and I met in business school, and he gave me some really sound advice while we were on a trip to Israel on a bus. And I'm glad to be connecting again with him. Amrit has an amazing background. He spent several years at Mckinsey. He's now the co-founder and chief executive at Zetwerk after he moved to India. So I'm excited to talk with Amrit today and really learn more about his journey. So Amrit, thank you so much for making the time.
No, thanks a lot for having me. And I don't remember this advice I gave you on this bus, but hopefully you can jog my memory at some point.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it was great. I remember going through a time where I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do the next summer, and you gave me some advice there. That makes me think. You've been on sort of a journey the past 2-3 years yourself. So what's been taking place? Would love to sort of catch up and with you.
So the last couple of years have been pretty wild for me. Actually, till 2017, I was in the US. As you mentioned, we went to business school together, and after graduating in 2016, I took a job with Mckinsey in the US in their Palo Alto office, and post which I spent some time in Australia, 4 or 5 months in Melbourne. Post which I decided to move back to India. This was January 2018. Both the reason to move back was both personal and professional. Like I wanted to be closer to family, and didn't really see myself being at McKinsey for too long, and wanted to explore entrepreneurial aspirations that I had for a long time. I came back to India in January 2018. For the first couple of months, was actually really just figuring it out. Like I literally decided, me and my then girlfriend, now wife, just decided to just overnight move back to India. We didn't really have a lot of thought in terms of should we have a job in hand, should we have everything crystal clear planned out. So it was a lot of uncertainty during those times. But what we realized, that uncertainty can be a friend. It doesn't have to be like something very that you're afraid of, and we really embrace that. But anyway, came back to India in Jan 2018. Ended up starting a company with my co-founder Srinath and a bunch of other folks. Today we are in our third year. That same year, also got married in December of 2018. So we ended the year on a high. So yeah, it was just a crazy year because three big things happened. Like changed continents. Though I grew up in India, moving back was an adjustment. It was not as seamless as I thought it would be. Ended up starting a company where we also raised capital. We ended up raising 2 rounds of capital. Our seed round and our Series A both happened the same year. In fact, our Series A happened 1 week before, and ended up getting married in December. Right, so just a crazy year. 2019 was again crazy but very different. It was because we were growing our company, so experienced all those highs that we've heard about in entrepreneurial journeys where companies start small and becomes big.
I
And
appreciate that. I mean, just in terms of how uncertainty can be your friend. And yeah, I mean, I think when we were talking, you said, it's sort of like a blink of an eye. It feels like that. I can, and we hear about this stuff in business school, but you're in the middle of it, you're doing it. And so, I feel like in some ways, these are sort of hard decisions to make. What kind of helped you, I'll just pick on something. One, like moving to India, kind of really making that transition. What was your logic and thinking behind that?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm totally honest, like the move to India was, as I said, combination of personal and professional. Like the trigger for us both me and Sharanya to move back was actually I didn't get my H1B in the lottery, right? And that's why I ended up spending a few months in Australia, just trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And post which McKinsey kind of told me like, look, you can spend some time in Australia, you can spend some time in Europe, and then maybe we'll apply for your visa again, and you can come back. Blah blah. But that was really a fork in the road for us. Like we just decided that we don't really want to be in a position where a lot of our life decisions get made on our behalf. If we were to not worry about all of these externalities, like what is the ideal decision that we would like to take? And that's when
Wow, I'm just gonna pick on that for a second. So if we were not able to, if we were not worrying about all these externalities, what would our life look like? I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it basically came from that. Like one thing led to other, and then we realized that for example, for Sharanya, she did have her visa in the US, but for her, she realized that long term she did want her and me to be together in the same place. So when McKinsey transferred me to Australia, she actually moved with me. And at that time, she was my girlfriend. We are not married. And Indian society, like the reactions we got from parents, like especially her parents, like, why are you leaving your job in the US to move with your boyfriend to a new continent? It was a little absurd. But that helped us answer one piece of the puzzle. And the next piece of the puzzle was, what should we do? Where should we live for a career? And that's when we realized that, look, we do want to, both of us had you know slightly different ambitions than what we were doing at that point in time. Like I loved my time at McKinsey, but I didn't think it would be a long term place where I built my career. And I had entrepreneurial aspirations, so we decided to just take that leap of faith and move back.
I appreciate that, and I mean, just how um, you're sort of you're doing thinking with someone else as well. You're kind of doing it together with your spouse. So just in terms of how, yeah, I mean, that's just amazing. What um, and McKinsey, of course, is there, and you're again moving continents, but like you're, I guess, how did you sort of process all this change as it was happening? Um, Looking back, and you're saying, yeah, there's these external forces, and I know what the family pressures can be like as well. So um
I mean, there's a lot of nuances to that. Like literally, when we moved back to India, and I decided that I do want to explore this opportunity to start a company. And at the same time, our wedding dates were fixed, and my dad basically gave me an ultimatum. Right, look, I don't want to introduce you to my friends and family as unemployed. Right, so you have till till September or October, and we are getting married in December to really figure it out. But luckily, is able to move forward faster than that, and things things worked out. But yeah, and again, it just there's
yeah,
so many things to consider
totally. I
when
mean, and I just appreciate how you sort of, I love your model of how hey, there's external forces, and then also you're just kind of taking control of your journey, on your own. And I know we started talking about your startup at the same time, but that must have been a little bit of a transition, just deciding to take off from the corporate job, and McKinsey's, of course, a great company, to a sort of a startup. Um, how was that transition?
um, I would say it was not like while I did love my time at McKinsey, I didn't spend a lot of time there. Like I was there for slightly more than a year. And even then, when I was there at McKinsey, like the gaps I felt in just my professional aspirations were more about doing things. Like prior to business school, I spent 4 years at a normal corporate job. In fact, my first 2 years out of undergrad, I was helping build a new factory. for the company I was working for. So I was really used to having a lot of like just what we call being an operator, and just being, just doing things, and just seeing the results of, the actions we take, which is something I guess I missed at McKinsey, like because it's a very advisory type of work. Like you advise folks, and then you often don't see the results of that. So for me, that transition was fairly comfortable. I guess the things that I have been, I guess the things that I've taken some more time to learn were just how to be like a chief executive of not a 10% company, but like today we are 200% company, right? And some of those things nobody really teaches you. You learn it on your own. There are so many things which you never know are part of your job, but you discover that there's nobody else who can do that. And then it kind of falls under your umbrella and your agenda. So some of those things uh, have been interesting, and especially because I had to learn it in a very short span of time. We're barely 2 years old as a company, and yeah, I mean, those were the main transition points.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I mean, and how, I guess the just the journey, and I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people end up in those types of shoes where, they've started this startup and now they've got to learn these new skills that, um, i- and they're really accomplished people, but at the same time, what are some other gaps? And I know you had to, for example, find a co-founder or somebody else. So like, how did you start to manage that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the number one thing that I mean, there are two things that are important for me actually when I was thinking about this whole idea of starting up. One was, of course, I needed to like what I was trying to do. It was not a case of trying to force fit an idea and will it to the world. It had to be something that I was fairly passionate about. And the second thing was, I needed to work with somebody I really deeply respected. And there are a lot of solo founders, and I totally like respect that journey. But I knew that that was not my journey. Like I knew I could not do this alone. And hence when I actually moved back to India, one of the first people I reached out to was Srinath, who's my co-founder today. Him and I actually went to undergrad together. We actually also had our first jobs together in the same company after undergrad, this large company called ITC in India. And yeah, so we go back a long way. We knew each other personally as well as professionally, and both of us were interestingly at that same point in our professional career that both of us wanted to do something of our own, and we talked to each other, and it just seemed like such a great fit. Like our journey of being friends for a decade, had a very logical conclusion where we became co-founders together.
Wow. I mean, it almost, the way you describe it, it feels like almost like everything just kind of fell in place. I mean, do you feel like luck played a role here a little bit and some sort of synchronicity going on?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can never discount any of those things. Like people, a lot of other people who I grew up with, they've at very different places in their lives at this point in time. They may not have been. Some of them got married, some of them had kids. And they may not have been in the right frame of mind to possibly start a company. But Srinath and I were exactly at the same stage of life, and we wanted to do something together. And yeah, I actually didn't reach out to too many other folks. I got lucky that the first person I spoke to, it kind of there was a lot of momentum there.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you sharing. I mean, I can imagine other people going through the similar journey, trying to find a partner or somebody that they could trust. And it sounds in Srinath, that's you found a great co-founder there. So,
Yeah,
um, and you guys have been in business now for 2-3 years, I believe. Is that right?
yeah, slightly over 2 years.
Great.
Just
And
started university a month ago.
nice. Awesome. Well, it's nice to see, hear about your successes and what the startup is doing as well. So, um, what's the latest going on with Zetwerk at the moment? I know you guys just um, received some new funding as well. So, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe maybe I'll spend a little bit of time talking about what we do. So we're basically trying to build a marketplace for custom manufacturing. So we connect on the demand side large enterprises, like these are companies like General Electric, Siemens, etc., who are fundamentally manufacturing companies, and we help them find small small manufacturers who can build the products that they require. And where we come in is we solve for that matchmaking element, we solve for pricing, and we solve for ultimately the orders getting fulfilled on time. As I said, we are slightly over 2 years old. Just did our Series C actually, and raised cumulatively around 60 million of equity capital. Have a good bunch of folks on our cap table. We have mostly Indian funds, Sequoia, Axel, Lightspeed, K, and Green Oaks. Those are our investors. And yeah, we've been generally on a pretty positively high growth trajectory. Like today, we work with around 100 plus companies. Mostly they're in India, though some part of our business is actually in the US. We have around 10 customers in the US. And what excites us is just this is such a large unsolved problem, and there's very little technology at play today, and it almost feels like there is enough work to do for a decade, and forget the economics of the company, but there is enough problems to be solved, and that's what motivates us on a daily basis.
I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing a little bit about the startup as well. Kind of gives folks some context for the awesome startup. And yeah, it's nice to see how fast it's growing. All right, as we're wrapping up here, any last shout outs or anything else you would like to add as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about some of the conversations we've been having outside this, right? And I think the number one top few takeaways that I've had. This is all looking back, right? Some of these were not obvious to me when I was trying to make some of these decisions, but like what I realized was the biggest thing that worked for both me and Sharanya is that we were able to come to a place where we were able to move beyond fear. Like a lot of times we get afraid of uh, situations which we can't necessarily control, and then we end up optimizing for something which we in our heart feel it's the wrong thing. And I think it took us a lot of time to get that courage to, I guess, um, be more thoughtful about our lives, right? And I would say that's the number one thing which has worked well for us, like taking those calculated risks, thinking through where we would like to be in a year, 5 years from now. Those are things that have really helped us expand how we take decisions.
I appreciate that. I mean, that fear of overcoming and just listening to that, the voice in the heart. I appreciate that. Um, I guess I wonder, like looking back, was there somebody or something that stood out that you did, or like a sort of a decision that you were like, okay, well, this is a shift, or this is what is going to help me overcome that fear, or was this just a lot of conversation that kind of led to it?
There were some triggers, like when I didn't get my visa, H1B in the lottery, it did feel a little unfair, or what have you, like. And also it felt like this was a situation where I was relying on something outside my control to determine the course of my life. And I guess I don't want to be in that situation again. Like, would rather try and have as much control of my life outcomes to the extent possible.
I appreciate that. I mean, in my mind, the story I'm telling myself is a little bit also like how you overcame fear by also just telling yourself that, controlling your own destiny, and not letting external forces and that sort of insight came together. I appreciate that. All right. Well, thanks so much, Amrit. Appreciate you making the time and for our first international podcast here.
All right. Thanks a lot, and take care.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please hit the subscribe button. We'll be back next week